All right, here we go again. I got another project in here this morning. Still got snow in the tire treads. Snowing a little bit today. I think we're supposed to get about 10 centimeters. I think that's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches if anybody's working with the old imperial system. Anyhow, this is a motorcycle that belongs to a real good friend of mine, Mike Herman. Mike keeps me busy. He's got all kinds of little projects that I've done for him over the years. In fact, the Steel Wheels Museum in Halifax here has got probably about 25 bikes in there that I've helped him restore or work on at least through the years. So yeah, Mike keeps me busy. Anyway, it's a good kind of busy. So this bike here was a project that Mike bought from, I believe, Lori Settle. I think it was last summer or maybe last spring in 2024. So we have been working on this bike. Him and me and Adam Burton have been tinkering away at this for, I don't know, the last 6 months or so. It was together, sort of. Basically, it was a rolling chassis with a nice looking gas tank sitting on it when he bought it. But it needed a lot of work to finish putting together. Like the transmission wasn't in, the primary wasn't on. Yeah, the toolbox wasn't under the seat or anything. It needed some work on the front end. Like we put a new wheel disc on there to replace the old one that was all beat up and stuff. And anyway, Mike wants me to put the wiring harness on this bike for him and maybe get it ready to see if we can get it running. There's a few other things that need to be done to it, but anyway, I'll fill you in on that when I get started. A little bit more history on this bike. I did not rebuild this engine. This was done at Cook's Classics. I don't think Gary worked on it himself. I think one of the fellas who he had working for him did the job. But hopefully everything is done correctly in the engine. Like I say, this used to be in Ed Campbell, a fellow named Ed Campbell's collection. And Ed had a lot of motorcycles, mostly in various states of disrepair. This was one of them, apparently. But there are things about this bike that are not correct. I discovered when we were working on the bike together over at Mike's place that the engine wouldn't turn over. And it turned out that we got up on the starter to see if we could get it to turn over. Heard a crack and all of a sudden it started turning over, but it turns out that this cover is not the right cover for this engine because the drive here on the tachometer does not align at all with the center of the exhaust cam. So, they stuck it together just to the point where it would go together, but they never tried turning the engine over. Like I say, when you take this off and you look in the hole, they don't align at all. So there's a piece that goes between the cam and the drive itself. So we just took that out so we can turn the engine over without damaging the drive anymore and that sort of thing. So we did crack one of the lugs on the cam, or excuse me, on the tack drive here, but it's still usable. But like I say, it's not connected to the camshaft anymore, so I might have to root around on eBay or something, try to see if I can get the right primary cover for this particular model year. But I always worry when I'm working on a machine, that especially when the engine's been put together by somebody else. But like I say, I think this bike was probably put together from an accumulation of bits and pieces, most of which were probably once the same bike, but some of which were not. So anyway, we'll take it one step at a time. Let's get the wiring done first, and see if we can get the power to the lights and that sort of thing. And we'll just go from there. But anyway, we'll see. It is a nice looking machine. I love that color blue on the tank. That's really great. Okay, you can tell the old furnace is humming away there in the background. So it's warm in here now. I got a little curious. I took the plugs out. I looked inside the engine. There's nice new pistons in there with nice freshly bored cylinders. So that's great. I stuck a compression tester in there and kicked it over. I stopped at about 130 and it was still climbing every kick. So I know that's just a really good sign. So I feel good about that. The engine hasn't even run yet. It's got that kind of compression, so that's great. I got curious to see if it had a spark at the same time, of course, and it turns out it's got a terrific spark on both sides, so that means that that old magneto, which we were told had been refreshed, has indeed been refreshed and is working quite well. Whether it's actually timed correctly, well, we'll find out about that a little later down the road. But anyway, I think it stopped snowing for now, so I'm going to grab my shovel and get that out of the driveway before another snowfall happens. Now, I want to get started with the serious work on this. Before I do the wiring harness, there are some other things that need to be addressed, like this. That center stand won't clear the muffler. There's a couple of ways of skinning that cat, but I don't really want to have to heat up that horn and bend it out around there if I can help it. I've been looking at a lot of pictures on the internet, and I don't think those mufflers are correct for this particular bike, because they should be mounted about, I don't know, maybe 3 inches further back, and that would give plenty of room for that kickstand to swing in front of the muffler, because every picture that I've seen of these from the primary side here has got that horn ahead of this. So that's what I'm thinking. I will take the clamp off of here, take the muffler off of there, and just see how much of this pipe is up in here. Like if the pipe is the right length for me to slide that back about 2.5 or 3 inches, I may be able to do this. But the mounts on these particular mufflers are right about in the center of the mufflers. On the mufflers that are supposed to go on here, the mounts are further back, so I could do some sort of a bracket to connect that bracket to the mounts on the muffler. Anyway, we'll see what happens. These aren't the best quality pipes anyway. I don't know if you can see it for sure. If you look at the tailpiece on that muffler, it's not aligned with the actual muffler itself. It's actually tipped inward a little bit, like toward the wheel. I don't know if you can see that in the video or not, but if you look at this one over here, this one is straight with the barrel of the muffler. Now that doesn't really matter. I mean, not many people are going to stand behind the bike and see that, but well, like I say, these are probably for a later model Triumph. And again, on this side, he had issues with the Kickstarter striking the muffler, so he's put a bunch of washers in behind there. Now the Kickstarter just clears the muffler by about a 32nd of an inch. But again, if that muffler was moved back about 2.5 or 3 inches, that would solve that problem. So the first thing to do is to see if those header pipes are actually long enough for me to slide that pipe back. So that's the first thing I'm going to do here, is that. Okay. We've got a couple of wrenches here, a cup of tea. Let's see how much time it takes to get this off of here. Shouldn't be too time consuming. Get the knot off of this little clamp first. That'd probably be the easiest way to approach it. Alright. That seems to be reasonably loose. There we go. Maybe get that right up off of the muffler and out of the way. Now we'll get this off of here. That wasn't very tight, Get this foot pedal out of the way. I do a lot of the cooking around here, and this morning I decided I would try to make a loaf of French bread. I make a lot of bread, but not a lot of French bread. Like I'll make your white bread or your whole wheat or brown bread. I go with baked beans or something like that, but I don't make French bread very often, and frankly, the recipe is about the same anyway. So it's just the, now look at that. I don't think I can get that bolt out of there. Yeah, that bolt's not going to come out of there because the swing arm's in the way. The only way to move the swing arm would be to take the shocks off, and that'd be a lot of messing around. So, let me just see. No, there's no way that's not gonna come off of there without getting the rest of that bracket off. Let me see what, there's two bolts on the bracket that fasten into the muffler. I'll see what size those are. Well, they seem to be 1/2 inch, so I can just take those bracket nuts right off and just leave that one in there for now. What I want to see is how long that exhaust pipe is, how far it goes up into the muffler body, and see if I can get that muffler back enough to clear that center stand. So let me just keep turning on this. I'm just going to put you on pause because just watching me unscrew that would just be boring. Okay, I got just a couple of threads left on that last bolt that's holding the muffler on. Get that off there. Let's see how much pipe we've got to slide into that muffler. Okay. Now, pull this off here. Oh, no, those exhaust pipes are not correct for this bike either. So I'm going to have to deal with what I've got. I don't want to go out and buy a brand new set of pipes that are, 3 inches longer than this. Just to put that on there like that. Really too bad. Anyway, it is what it is. So I'll have to use these pipes the way they are. I'm going to have to take that center stand off. I hate doing it, but I have to bend this out, back up, and have this at the right angle so it's nice and straight. But it needs to clear the muffler, and it just won't clear the muffler the way it is. And there's no way those pipes are coming back. If I had a piece of an extension pipe that I could go in between these, I might try that. It wouldn't have to be very long. I'll dig through my pieces of old chrome pipe, see if I've got something that will slip up over there. I highly doubt it, but if I do, I could get away with that. Otherwise, I'm going to have to work with that kickstand and the mufflers that I already have. See if I can get it working. So anyway, that's where I am right now. So I'm going to dig around, grab my cup of tea here, and see if I can't find a little piece of pipe. I kind of doubt it, but you never know. Well, I've done about 20 minutes worth of digging around, and I found a couple of little pieces of pipe, none of which are the right length. And I did find a large piece of electrical conduit that will fit up over this, but I don't want to put a piece of galvanized steel on over chrome. That would look stupid. So other than going out and buying a whole new exhaust system for this bike, I think I'm going to use what we've got. The Kickstarter is clearing the muffler on the other side, so that will work. But I'm going to have to do what I don't want to do and bend a piece of factory correct equipment out into the right shape to go around that muffler barrel. It's the only other way of doing it. I hate the idea of doing that to something that's factory correct, but it's the straightest road ahead that I can see. Anyways, so I guess while I've got the muffler out of the way, I might as well take the bolts out of that center stand and get that sorted out. But yeah, anyways, it's not the way I wanted to do it. It's kind of like the way I have to do it. And I'm thinking, maybe while I've got all these pipes off of here, I might as well take this head pipe off and remove that side cover because it's full of transmission fluid, and that stuff tends to make clutch plates slip. So I'm going to take that off, drain that transmission fluid out of there, get some proper oil in there like the factory manual calls for. And I know people get these ideas off the internet, but automatic transmission fluid does not belong in the primary case of a motorcycle. I don't care what you think about that, but you know, I've had bikes that I tried it on and the clutch slipped so bad that I couldn't even drive the darn thing. So anyway, use the correct fluid, whatever it says on, let's say right here, use light grade oil, SAE 20 grade. So there you go. It should be a light grade engine oil basically. So anyway, time to, yeah, I might as well just take this off, get that cover off of there and look after that. And then I can go back to fitting that kickstand. You know, this is what makes this kind of work sort of interesting, because if it was just bolt together and you didn't have to use your head to think about anything or how you're going to get around these problems, you would just stop. It wouldn't be any fun if it was just bolted together. It would be like putting a plastic model together or something. I mean, it's challenging when you run into these problems on a real live motorcycle or whatever you happen to be working on. It gets your head working. It may not be, you know, 100% factory correct and all this sort of stuff, but what I build here is not the kind of bikes that you trailer to a show and never put oil or gasoline in. I build bikes that you can ride. And you do what you got to do. You make it look as pretty as you can, as factory correct as you can, but you make it so you can drive it. And that's all part of it. So anyway, enough talking. Get this off, get that off, change that oil, get this bent to the right shape to go around that muffler, and then we'll go from there. Meanwhile, I got to go check my bread. I've got some French bread in the oven rising. We'll see how that's coming. Let's have a little look in there. Oh, it's rising pretty good. We'll let it go a little longer yet. Maybe put another pot of tea on. I decided to let that bread rise about a half hour more before I pat it down, make a loaf out of it. And anyways, as you can see, got most of that old ATF out of here. And this cover is really stuck down really good with that good old 3-bond stuff with no other gasket on it. So I always tell people, be careful when you're taking this stuff off, because you shouldn't have to force it. But in this case, you have to make sure you have all the nuts and bolts removed. Now, am I going to have to take that off of there? I might have to push that bolt through there a little ways, because that bolt goes right through to the other side there. So let's see, that should come off of there. Yep, there we go. Yeah, I'm just gonna wipe all that red fluid out of there, and I might screw in those. Maybe I should take the clutch plates out and just wipe them off in case they got a bit of that transmission fluid on them. Wouldn't be a bad thing. All right. Well, I got to tell you, I am glad that I had to open this up. Of course, I wanted to show you something too. This is a fancy adapter plate that holds the newer type of Lucas alternator hub, and of course the newer core there too. So anyway, yeah, that's made for a 12-volt system. That setup there, it's a 2-wire output. So I don't know if you'd call that an improvement or not, but the old 6-volt ones for here will produce 12 volts like nobody's business. I had an old Triumph TRW with a standard setup in it, and I wired that to run on as 12 volts, and I ran that bike with the halogen headlight in it, the 65-watt one, all day long, and that thing never lost power. Anyway, there's a real good reason why I'm glad I opened this up even more than to show you that. When we put this together, that chain had about 3/8 of an inch of slack on it, you know, up and down movement. That is just singing tight right now. I don't know how in blazes it got that tight, because when we put it together, the chain had a proper amount of clearance, unless maybe the back wheel might have got so tight that it pulled the whole transmission back. Anyway, I have got to address that, because that will tear the bearings of the transmission, the engine. It's not good for the chain, all that stuff. So yeah, I got to look after that right away before I do anything else. I'm glad I had to open that up. I think I found out what happened with that primary chain. There is an adjuster underneath here that fastens onto the engine plates, and that keeps, or tries to keep, at least actually that nut's a little loose. I should tighten that up. Anyway, that tries to keep the transmission in the proper position, and I kind of think that when the back chain went on the bike, it probably pulled the whole transmission and stuff backwards. It was probably set up too tight in the first place, and then adjusted back to the right tension. So that, anyway, right now I've got about 3/8 inch of slack there, and about 3/4 of an inch of slack on the back chain. All the adjusters are, you know, snugged up where they should be. Axle nuts are tight. The bolt that goes through the transmission up top there to the engine plates, that's all tight. So, like I say, I think I'm just going to take those clutch plates out, wipe them off, make sure they didn't get any of that transmission fluid on them, because that may cause them to slip. So anyway, let me get that, and then we'll put the cover back on. Well, this is one of the things I don't have to use when we're working out at Mike's. I use the lathe to deglaze those steel plates, get a nice fresh surface on there. I'll just show you one of the old ones. There's the old one there. That hasn't been deglazed yet. And that's the deglazed one with the that fresh metal on it. So hopefully that will help keep the clutch from slipping when the bike is finally together. And yeah, I'll put that in there next. Take a piece of sandpaper and deglaze that one. Okay. Let's get the sandpaper. There we have the steel and the friction plates all cleaned up, ready to go. I just gave these old friction plates I put a piece of like medium grit sandpaper on the top of the drill press table, because it's nice and flat, and I used that just to get that black surface that you usually see on these old corks cleaned up, so enough that you can see the cork. And of course, nice fresh surface on those steel plates. I'm going to make sure that I've got these steel plates all done in the right direction, because these are stamped out, they're not machined, and what you get is you'll get a rounder side right on one side than on the other on these tabs. So as long as they're all facing in the same direction, that's what you want, because if they do go into a kind of a cup shape, they'll all be going in the same direction. So anyway, I've got the first friction plate in the clutch basket already, so I'll put the rest of them in, put the cover back on, and then I'll be able to put the primary cover on, and we'll go from there. Okay, well, that pretty much wraps up this morning's little adventures. I think you can see that the clutch is back together and all that stuff. I'm going to paint a little timing mark as well on that generator stator, so that if I do ever want to stroke time this bike, I can do it with the cover. I'd have to take the primary cover off, of course, to do it, but at least there will be a mark there, so I could strobe time it if I want. I can even do that before I put the cover back on, just kick it and get somebody to hold the strobe light on it and just see where it flashes. So anyway, thanks for watching. Be good to each other. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.